If you watched my Great Ace Attorney Adventures video, you know how much of a positive light I view that game in. Of course it's not perfect, I hope I conveyed that to you all thoroughly, but it's still one of the best games in the series, and one of my personal favorite games in general. With that being said however, I still wouldn't say it's the best one in the franchise. In my opinion, that title goes to its sequel, The Great Ace Attorney Resolve. This game, by no exaggeration, is Capcom's magnum opus for the Ace Attorney series. With it only releasing 2 years after the first, it manages to improve on so much while also serving as an amazing conclusion to this duology. So with my playthrough of it coming to a close, it's time to talk about it. Without further ado, allow me the pleasure of showing you all the peak that is The Great Ace Attorney Resolve. As I mentioned with the first game, this is a visual novel, so don't expect robust gameplay. But for the gameplay that is here, Resolve remained consistent with what adventures introduced / repurposed from the series prior. Some welcome changes though came with less summation examinations. They were definitely the weaker out of the two compared to Dance to Deduction, so only having it for case 2 and 3 helped address my concerns with it from the last video. I don't hate this game mode either, it's a good way to shake up the status quo the series has built so far, but the substance it provides doesn't match up with the amount of times it appears, cheapening its effect as a result. Dance to Deduction on the other hand has only improved. These appear even more in the second game and I think it's well earned. It feels like the presentation was beefed up here, with flair oozing from the entire section, which is saying something since the mode already had an aura to begin with. The camera angles, the environments, the transitions, the characters and their poses all give this game mode so much life. Good examples are Case 3's deduction with Enoch Drebber and Case 5's deduction on the SS Grouse. These two not only feel great to solve, but also punctuate the story so well because of how it's presented. I'll never forget Mikotoba dancing, man, such a memorable moment. Putting a focus more on the deductions was definitely a good choice. They stick with the player after the game because it was a genuine experience. It also adheres to the game's Sherlock Holmes inspiration. I loved it then and I love it even more now. One thing I didn't mention in the last video was the difficulty of the mysteries. For the sake of transparency, I admit that I used a guide for some of these. I'm here for the story, but when I get stumped, I give up too easily. It's a bad trait of mine when playing these type of games. Take away my credentials because the playthrough is compromised and I'm nothing more than a flagrant fraud. So if my opinion holds no weight because of this, I don't blame you, but I will say this. This game sets out to challenge the player by making them use logic and reasoning. So the goal isn't to make an impossible mystery, but one that can challenge the player as they progress through the case with the evidence provided to them. Of course, with increasing difficulty throughout each one. I think the game strikes a good balance of difficulty here, while still keeping it grounded. Even with me having used the guide, if I force myself to solve it, then I could have done so eventually. That's thanks to the logic and reasoning behind the cases being sound and believable. Granted, you can just guess. The game's punishments are just game over and restart from your last decision, which is no different from a slap on the wrist because you can just try again until you succeed. But solving it yourself is gratifying the harder they get. Nothing feels better than solving a tough case. Now that I finished both games, I went and 100%ed the collection. This one isn't difficult, you'll get a bunch of them if you just play the game and investigate everything, but some of them, like the Skulkin Brothers one, you won't get if you aren't looking for it. The game makes getting these trophies super intuitive once you beat it. It's easy to jump into a chapter and continue from there. It's not super specific, but it's specific enough to get the job done. The accolades also show your progress and what you're missing. With these helpful tools, it's not a freebie if you only played the game, but it's not a grueling task to complete it either, which I do appreciate. I say it's worth getting it if you're up for it. Overall, the game's consistent gameplay builds a sense of familiarity inside the player, resulting in a higher baseline at the start of the game in terms of skill. Just like Naruhodo throughout his journey, we've gotten better alongside him. Moving on to the visuals, I'll admit that my opinion hasn't changed. I'm still fond of this game's presentation, designs, and graphics, so a lot of the praise I held for it in Adventures will hold true here, especially since the visual philosophy has remained consistent in Resolve. The animations though really put these models to the test. Characters like Shamspear, Drebber, and Mikotoba use their movements to demonstrate how impressive these animations really are. Whether it be through jerky and rough movements, or fast and precise dancing, the models really demonstrate their improvement in this game. If the next Ace Attorney is in 3D, if we ever get one, I hope it builds off of this system. Character designs are also top notch here, as the new characters really show out in every case of this game. I'll show a few of my favorites on screen now. The Victorian era influence never feels like a limiter here. The previous game's characters also get some love here with updated designs. Characters like Gina, Mikotoba, Jigoku, and Asogi get changes to their appearance to reflect changes in their life since the first game, or changes in their story arc. It's a good way to show that characters have grown between these games. Quick shout out to Kazuya Nuri and the 2D art as well. The The sprites and art are phenomenal here. It made making thumbnails for the stream so much fun. Before I forget, I want to talk about the cutscenes. Adventures had animated cutscenes throughout the game. They give a good look at the animated side of Ace Attorney, a side besides the anime that we don't see often. Resolve, however, uses 3D cutscenes instead, and honestly I don't mind the change, but I definitely prefer the animated cutscenes. The 3D ones aren't bad at all, mind you. They're extensions of what we already see in the game, but with added voice acting to boot. But that's the difference. The animated cutscenes were special because they were visually different from the rest of the game. That 2D animation catches you by surprise because of the stark contrast in comparison to the usual 3D. I say this at risk of sounding like a hypocrite after praising the models for 2 minutes straight, but I do prefer the animated cutscenes. But I think at that point, it's up to preference, so let me know your stance down below. The music in this game. Oh my lord, the music. I labeled last game's soundtrack as one of my favorites of all time. Of course, it'd be hard to follow up when the bar is set so high, but I'm glad to say that Resolve follows in the footsteps of its predecessor, it even surpasses it. Some songs have been removed from the first game because the corresponding characters don't appear here. Some of them are dead, arrested, or just don't have a place in the story, but a lot of them do find their way here, with some of them even getting updated themes to match their story. Characters like Asogi, Naruhodo, and Susato get new themes to match their growth or regression in the story. It helps to build the atmosphere that we're still on this journey together with Naruhodo. But the new songs help remind the player that there's still a bunch left to learn and explore in London's busy streets. There's so many amazing additions to the soundtrack. A Great Pursuit, Overture to Resolve, The Great Close Trial, A Battle of Wits, Partners, A Spectre Revived. This game off of the soundtrack alone feels like an epic conclusion to the story. If you like the first game's soundtrack, you'll love this one even more. Yasumasa Kitagawa and Yoshiya Teruyama made sure to send this duology off with a bang. One thing I didn't talk about with the last game was the extra section in the collection. It includes things like the soundtrack, concept art, voice lines, promotional videos, extra costumes for the characters, unused content from development, and extra scenes for people who want to see more of their favorite characters. Shout out to all the Yasunosa fans getting the content they deserve. It's hard work being a visionary, I know. This stuff is great for not only fans of this duology, but Ace Attorney fans in general, because it shows the love behind these games. Getting a peek behind the curtain and seeing the philosophy behind every detail really shows just how much effort everyone involved put into this game. Small things like character voice lines, objection, the promotional material, extra costumes for Shom, Susato, and Naruhodo all feel like thank you gifts from everyone involved. Stuff like this always makes me smile because it shows the love the developers have for the fans. If you own the collection, I recommend giving this a look. Super quickly, I want to mention the voice acting before I move on to the story. It's just as good as the last game, so just like before, a lot of my praise will carry over as well. We hear it with the narrator, voice lines, and cutscenes, but thanks to the emotional weight behind this game, we see some excellent performances. My only complaint really is that there isn't enough of it. Granted, Ace Attorney isn't a series that's known for its voice acting, that's why the sound effects, voice lines, and music is so iconic. It's the only things you hear in the game. But to that same effect, the instances where we do get voice acting here and other mainline games are great. I feel like it's a missed opportunity for this franchise to utilize it more. Of course, not voice acting the entire game, but adding more voice acted cutscenes. It'd be a nice step up for Ace Attorney. I say all that to say that I appreciate the work the voice actors did in this game. It's really amazing stuff. Alrighty, let's talk about this game's story. One of the great Ace Attorney's many strengths is its world building, and that stays consistent in its sequel. Whether it be in Japan or London, the writing makes sure to stay accurate to what the 19th century was like for both of these countries. Of course, it's still going to include its Ace Attorney-isms. Sholmes and Iris are textbook examples of this with the inventions they create, but despite some of the liberties taken, this duology stays faithful to the time period it's based in. The Great Exhibition is a good example of this. It displays the wonder and innovation that this era was ushering in. Since the 19th century was a time period filled with progression, the Great Exhibition is at the forefront of this movement. Resolve makes sure to portray that whimsy well. I want to mention, by the way, that the Great Exhibition was a real thing too. While this game makes sure to glorify certain things, it also doesn't shy away from others, like the rampant crime rate, blatant sexism, and xenophobia, along with corruption and extortion. The previous game was about learning and integrating to British culture, really only seeing the surface of it, with a few glimpses of the dark underbelly sprinkled throughout. But now that we've acclimated to it and found our footing, Resolve shows us the malfeasance that lays in the dark recesses of London's heart. How it hurts innocent people, changes individuals, and even corrupts them. We see it all. I don't say this slightly when I say that the writing in this game is the best Ace Attorney has to offer. I mentioned the world building, but I also wanted to mention his overarching narrative with the Hound of the Baskervilles. There are 2 games in his collection, with them holding 5 cases each. The Hound of the Baskervilles mystery really takes off in the second game, with the first game introducing it in The Adventure of the Unspeakable Story. But what blows my mind is how planned out everything was from the start. Of course, the game has deliberate nods to the Hound of the Baskervilles to show that a bigger plot is at play, but once you beat both games, you realize just how much was under the player's nose the entire time. The reason why this amazes me is because Ace Attorney doesn't do this to this degree. Every story, even in the trilogies, have a concise beginning and end. The story told in that game stays in that game and will occasionally get mentioned in later games, but The Great Ace Attorney is a story that is bigger than the games it's in. It's a story told across 2 games, but it really feels like one. That's so impressive because they make use of every case. No matter how big or small its contribution, every case is connected. This realization comes about thanks to the final case in this game, but also because of its phenomenal writing throughout each case. Case 1 and 2 are good cases, standing above their counterparts from the last game, but these 2 I feel could be in the last game and it wouldn't surprise me. Of course, that's not a knock on their quality, but because of how much they draw upon the last game. They give off the same vibe. Case 3 though, just like the last game, marks a significant tone shift in the game. You know a case is good when it feels like a final case, halfway through the game. If Case 5 wasn't in this game, Case 3 would easily be my favorite case in this entire duology. The characters, the setting, the mystery, it all comes together for Ace Attorney's best 3rd case ever. Case 4 and 5, while having their clear distinctions, are so interconnected that it's hard not to view them as a package deal. Which, trust me, that isn't a demerit. These 2 cases are some of the best the series has to offer. The entirety of Case 5 alone is enough for me to recommend this duology to people. The Resolve of Ryunosuke Naruhodo is a story that I believe is worth getting into Ace Attorney for. It's so well thought out and well presented, it's one that'll have you by the edge of your seat the entire time. The character section. The last section for all of my videos. He's usually here because 9 out of 10 times is where I have the most to say. And it's no different here. In the last game, I made an effort to talk about Naruhodo and his adventure. We saw his growth, the challenges he faced, and his eventual ascension into an Ace Attorney. While there were other characters that held the spotlight at times, last game was really Naruhodo's game. This game, however, is where the other main characters take the center stage. Before I talk about them, however, I do want to mention the side characters first. This game has a solid cast of characters for each case. Case 1 and 2 reused the most characters from the previous game, but I personally don't mind it because it's offset by the new characters introduced. Case 3 onward is when we really see this come into effect, and they're some of the best that Duology has to offer. My favorite cast is Case 3, that's of course taking into account my bias, but Case 4's roster is pretty good too, that's of course taking into account my bias. Every case is a good cast that doesn't feel stale or annoying. Their gimmicks are tolerable and their stories are thrilling. Their motives are believable and well written too. Olive Green's retribution for Duncan, Many Memo's vigilante justice, and Sai's cooperation with Drebber are really good examples. If you're interested in the side characters that I like, I'll show them on screen now. Overall, I can say this game has better side characters than adventures, but the main cast is where I have to tip my hat. The first 2 I want to look at are Kazuma Asogi and Barok Van Zieks. Asogi had his father taken from him at a young age. Not only that, Getch's character was a victim of scrutiny. Even though he didn't know him for long, Asogi knew his father was of great character, a stand-up man overall. So to hear that his father was a mass murderer in a foreign land sounds so fictional it's hilarious. So Asogi had to see for himself. But of course, things happened. But when he regains his memories at the end of Case 3, he's different from the man we once knew. The game uses 2 themes for Asogi's return, his glorious return and a prosecutor reborn. His glorious return is meant to signify the pure elation Naruhodo and Susato felt finally seeing Asogi after so long. Remember, they thought he was dead for almost a year. That type of emotional trauma doesn't just go away. So to see their best friend in the flesh after so long, calling his return anything other than glorious would be disrespectful. His original theme, Samurai on a Mission, can be heard throughout it. It's meant to be a momentous occasion, but then you see how Asogi's moving in Case 4. He's no longer the defense attorney that Susato knew, nor the lawyer that helped Naruhodo become what he is now. This is a man possessed by his ambition. A prosecutor reborn is the theme that plays for him now. While his own motif can be heard scattered throughout, this isn't the same man. Dark emotions drive his blade, pushing him to find the truth by any means. Barok, on the other hand, lost his brother to the professor. He also lost a good friend in Genshin Asogi because he ended up being the professor. I don't mean to detract from the point that I'm about to make here, but I need to talk about Barok's theme. Whenever the game uses it, it's quiet before it does, and then boom, it just immediately crashes in. Here, look at this clip as an example. What do you Nipponese want? Some way to greet the lawyer who's trying his hardest to prove your innocence, is it? Perhaps not. I apologize. So what can I do for you, Mr. Naruhodo? It's about damn time. Finally commanded some respect around here. I find it so funny because of how often it happens in the game. If you go and watch my VODs, you'll see how much it happens. Anyway, back to the video. Losing so much so quickly not only changed his life, but his perspective on it as well. He was a bright-eyed young adult who looked up to the pillar of justice his brother represented. But now he's jaded and racist. Wanting to avenge him, Barok was allowed to prosecute the professor case because Stronghart let him. As a result, the Reaper of the Bailey attached to him as his legend grew. Now with this dark reputation surrounding him, the Reaper keeps criminals at bay, even if it means Barok has to pay the price for it. These two, for as much as they hate each other, mirror each other greatly. One example is how much they look up to their role models. Asogi emulates his father's honor, while Barok emulates his brother's sense of justice. But the twisted irony of it is how they contrast their role models as well. Asogi would go to great lengths to avenge his father's honor, even almost killing Gregson on the SS Grouse. The dark whispers of revenge tainted his blade and almost tipped him past the point of no return, something that Genshin would never do. While Genshin did duel Clint to the death, he did it for honor's sake, not revenge. His best friend was a highly publicized murderer, but he still gave him mercy and respect in his final moments. It doesn't excuse murder, but Genshin wouldn't try to excuse it. He holds Clint and himself accountable for their respective sins. Barok, on the other hand, went to great lengths to protect his brother's justice that he perpetrated as a prosecutor. He followed the law because it's what his brother would have done. And while Barok uses the Reaper standing to dissuade criminal activity, he never actually killed anyone, as it would go against his brother's code. Genshin, Clint, and Barok are great friends, only for Barok's view of him to be tainted thanks to the lies Stronghart propagated. One thing about the Reaper of the Bailey epithet is how my perception of it changed by the end of the game. We know Stronghart is the Reaper since he pulled the strings from behind the scenes, but now knowing that Clint is the professor, it almost makes the Reaper seem like Clint's spirit is still enacting his justice. It's a tragic end to a character who wanted to bring change to the court of law, almost like his soul can't rest while the Reaper still exists, while Stronghart still puppets his blade and hound. And while it's hard to give Clint too much sympathy, it is cathartic seeing him get justice once the professor case is brought to a close. Overall, Asogi and Barok's animosity is tragic when considering how much Genshin and Clint respected one another. With the way Resolve ended though, it seems like the bridge, although super shaky, can possibly be mended. I saw some people put the idea out there that if there's another Ace Attorney game released, and it isn't a mainline game, it'll hopefully be an investigations game instead. But instead of Edgeworth, it's Barok and Asogi as partners, solving cases in London together. I rock with the idea heavy. It'd be cool to see how they grow their relationship, on top of seeing London after Resolve. Asogi and Barok are victims of circumstance. That circumstance influenced how they moved, thus becoming their own actions. But the man behind that circumstance is a creature of malintent, Lord Chief Justice Mael Stronghart. When you meet him in Adventures, most players immediately think, oh yeah, this guy's up to no good. It doesn't help that his office is so imposing and grandiose with the cogs and doves. He's the Lord Chief Justice, but it feels more like grandstanding. He's the pinnacle of Ace Attorney final case bad guy, but you hear his ideals about reforming the justice system and progressing science and you think, maybe he's not so bad. Maybe he's a serious but well-intentioned guy. The game does a good job hiding him. That bad feeling you had about him never goes away and you don't know why. But that doesn't matter when there's other characters like McGilded, Graydon, Shamspear, and Drebby you have to worry about. As a result, Stronghart becomes a background character. And while the player's attention is elsewhere, he's behind the scenes scheming. You have the Lord Chief Justice who handles the court side, but then there's the Reaper, the man who sends Giselle Brett to kill John Wilson and sends Jigoku to kill Gregson. He's a puppeteer pulling the strings from behind the scenes because he set the game board up in his favor, even reaching as far back as 10 years prior when he found out Clint murdered the aristocrat. He'll use blackmail to get what he wants, forcing Clint to become the professor. This brought him status, as one of the professor's victims was the previous Lord Chief Justice. Nothing he has, he earned. It's been through scheming and using others for his own purposes that he's propagated himself as high in the legal system as he has. He's hurt countless people and set in motion a chain of events that leads us to the state we find London in today. He did all of this to rid London of its criminal underground. The previous Lord Chief Justice was inadequate in his eyes. He was too soft on crime, so he blackmailed Clint to have him killed. Now in a position of power, he could enact his vision of changing London for the better. And while everyone could respect that goal on the surface, What he did to get there is detestable. He erases any evidence linking him to any of his previous crimes, forces people to be his accomplices, and frames innocent people for his schemes. To rid London of its underworld, he walked amongst it and made it worse. This duology exists because Stronghart masked his sin as virtuous. But, out of everything that came from it, one thing was birthed from this complete desolation. Ryunosuke Naruhodo and his resolve. You know I had to bring him back. What makes Naruhodo such a great character is that he wasn't meant to be here. He was framed for John Wilson's murder. He's an impromptu stand-in for Asogi in a student exchange. He was meant to get McGilded acquitted, and most of all, he wasn't meant to get this far. However, since his inclusion wasn't planned, he caused pure chaos. He's an unknown variable, an unpredictable factor that can flip the entire board on its head because the game started without him in it. He's such a mystery because before this, he was a nobody. During his early trials, he was a nobody, but people like Asogi, Susato, Sholmes, and even Barok saw something in him. That moment when his pursuit theme starts playing, conviction swells in his eyes, and he shouts objection. When he defends his client for the sake of finding the truth, we see that Naruhodo was always meant for this. This is what makes him perfect for the professor case. He serves as a foil to Stronghart. Naruhodo made the most of his opportunities and worked for what he got. He played the game fair and didn't sacrifice his morals for his goal. He earned the people's trust and made a bunch of friends along the way. He won't maintain a lie to keep the masses at bay. He'll take off their blindfold and let them decide for themselves. Let them see the truth. I mentioned last game Naruhodo's experiences in court as a lawyer and a defendant. Living through both sides gives him a nuanced perspective others don't have. It gives him a level of sympathy that can't be imitated. It's the same feeling that allows him to defend Barok without reservation. Just like with Gina and Saseki, Naruhodo sees himself in that cell, scared and uncertain. Never again will he let someone suffer alone. Naruhodo's resolve allows him to stand against Asogi in court, not as an adversary, but as partners searching for the truth. That belief his friend had for him is on full display. The Great Ace Attorney Resolve is about what Naruhodo learned from his adventure. He started by adopting Asogi's wish, but he would later repurpose it and make it his own. Thanks to the people that helped him grow, and the adventure he went on, he managed to put a 10-year-old case to rest. Mikotama, no games now with my words, were they not? Come on, Sholmes. Where's the fun in life without a little fooling around, Quite right, you are. I will admit, there's more characters that I could have mentioned, but the characters section is already long enough. If there's anyone you wish I mentioned or elaborated on, please let me know in the comments below. As for this game as a whole, it's a 9 out of 10. The duology is a masterpiece though. If you love visual novels, I feel like this collection is a must-have. I've already glazed these games enough over the past 2 videos, but I want to end it by saying that I love them sincerely, and I'm so happy that I've been able to give my thoughts on them these past 8 months. And with that, I want to thank y'all for watching, whether that be this video, the previous adventures video, or the live streams for both of them. I'm thankful for your viewership because I had a lot of fun making these. At some point, I plan on playing the original Ace Attorney trilogy. I already bought it, so it's only a matter of time. But for now, we're back to the Type Moonverse. I'm playing Tsuikihime on stream right now. There's 7 VODs out, so I'll link the playlist down below if you're interested. Of course, a big shout out to the Ace Attorney fandom page. It helped me out a lot throughout these past 2 videos. I also want to apologize for the wait, but no matter what, as long as I was alive, this video was going to come out. Once my situation is stable, videos should come out more frequently. If you want any updates on what's to come though, always check the community post tab to see what's going on. Until then though, it's been a pleasure. I pen this, my last will and testament, in the final moments before my inevitable and willing death. The hour is 11 PM, and I sit at my writing desk in my office. My good friend Asogi stands at my shoulder. He has expressed his intent to invoke the dying ritual of the duel, that I may depart this world with honor, an honor of which I am utterly undeserving. The Japanese are truly a merciful people. I, Clint Van Zieks, Lord of the Manor of the Van Zieks Estate, hereby confess to the following. I am the killer who has come to be known in society as the Professor, guilty of 4 counts of murder. I will not here discourse the corruption rife among the aristocracy, which is to me, as one of them, so apparent. However, 6 months ago, I took the life of a member of the House of Lords at the heart of the depravity. A demon who habitually sacrificed the common man to further his own interest, abusing his position of power. The law is impotent against such vile avarice. Only a fellow demon can rid society of this menace. That demon was my quarry, upon whom I willingly set my great hound. But though I am a hunter of some experience, I am a poor felon, it seems. My guilt was at once recognized by another, and I become subject to his extortion. He held over me the threat of exposing my wicked crime to my beloved wife and brother. Under that threat, I have done this man's bidding for months now, killing those he demanded I kill. As I watched my former mentor perish before my eyes at the jaws of the hound I commanded, I realized that I had lost the last shred of decency within me, and sunk to the level of a wild beast. There is no path back to the light. Be it I or my dear friend Asogi who dies this night, I am eternally damned. To my extortioner, Mael Stronghart, may you feel the jaws of the beast at your throat every time you swallow. As I confront the prospect of my demise, I feel bitter regret for my younger brother, Barok. You have always looked up to me, and now you follow in my footsteps to become a prosecutor. It is my fervent wish that my unspeakable deeds should not hinder your advancement. I ask not for understanding, for none could understand my depravity. I ask only for forgiveness. Asogi is a fine detective, and a hunter worthy of respect. He has agreed to honor my final two wishes. The first is that this document survives. The second, I cannot commit to paper. I have confessed my sins to my wife. May she find resolution in my death. With my eternal gratitude to my Japanese friend, I rest my quill. Clint Van Zieks.